and welcome down to the paddock, and we are excited for this one. The sun is shining, the wind is blowing a little bit stronger than it has done so far, but there is no rain on the horizon, it seems. You can never quite count it out here, can you? And I've got Alex Brundle with me as ever, as we did this morning, and you heard him earlier on. Now you can see him in the flesh. Jolyon Palmer, how excited are you for this one?
Yeah, pleased to be out of the commentary box,
Yeah.
enjoying the brilliant sunshine that we've got. It's going to be fascinating, isn't it? It was really close on the times, lots of little mistakes from a lot of drivers earlier on. And so sprint qualifying comes up so quickly on these weekends, and it immediately matters.
I know, if it's frenetic for us, it must be a tad more so for the teams involved, Jolyon. FP1 then, we saw Antonelli, of course, going quickest, as was through the first half of the season. He's on top. What did we learn from that, do we think?
Antonelli fastest, but you've got 2 tenths covering the top 4, 3 teams involved in that battle. So it looked really open, to be honest. It seemed to be all about who set the lap time when. Hard to judge who was going to be quick. They lost a lot of free practice time, I think, to it being slightly damp earlier on and then the circuit really ramping up, or a lot of free practice data they could have got. So what is a short session anyway, made even shorter by the conditions.
Your pick at the start of the weekend was a Lando Norris win in the Grand Prix. Yes, it's just sprint qualifying.
Yeah.
But what did you make of his form in FP1? Is there any more on the table for that McLaren?
I was going to say, give me time to build into that, but I think Lando's right in the mix. For me, I had a pause before delivering my verdict, and I think it's going to be Norris, because I was torn between Norris and Antonelli, and I still think they're the 2 favourites for sprint quali. It's just a good track for Lando. Oscar again struggled a little bit earlier on. He's not completely in sync with his car at the moment. But again, it looked good for Norris. They had some new parts on the car, seemed to be working quite well. It was a tidy session. I just think it's all so close, and they have to run the medium tyres for the first 2/3 of qualifying. So they'll all get through to the top 10, no problem, all the main contenders. It is then about delivering 14 corners on a soft and trying to recalibrate your mind as to where the grip's going to be on a soft tyre, just to find a few tenths. It's not going to be massive, but that's going to be the difference if you can exploit the full potential of that soft tyre at the end. That's pole or is P4.
Have you just jinxed them then? Are we going to see a big casualty out in SQ1?
No, I don't think so. They've got enough margin. I don't think so. It's nice conditions. I've not jinxed anyone. They're all going to serenely pass through.
They're short sessions, and you've only got one set of each tyre, and we saw a lot of errors in FP1, mostly because of this tailwind in the final sector. So I'm going to try and unjinx them, but if I say that there's a chance they could be a big scalp.
It's a short lap, isn't it? And there's a lot of cars, so 22 will be heading straight out there in SQ1, and so traffic is probably the biggest thing. The wind, I would say, it's actually reduced slightly from earlier on, and the track will just be bone dry across the surface now, so you're not going to have those bits of moisture. But we did see a lot of rear instability. We saw moments at 11 and 12. And in 13 as well, right towards the final sector. Rear tyres starting to overheat, drivers struggling with snappiness. That's your risk. I just believe that the top teams have too much for the bottom teams when it's really busy. So even if they miss a lap, they have traffic, they can do a cool and they'll have time to go again and dig themselves out.
Track does bite back, doesn't it? As Verstappen and Hamilton both found out earlier on, and little trips to the gravel. On Verstappen's side, P11, you feel we've not seen anywhere near what that Red Bull could be capable of. This was a race they were targeting. He has come here and committed his future to Red Bull through to 2030. What can he do, guys?
It wasn't great, wasn't it? He didn't appear to have much balance, but you can never count him out around here. We'll see how this plays out, but it's certainly like a situation where Verstappen comes into this session thinking, you know, I've got to actually push to make it through the first couple of parts. He can't cruise through SQ2, I don't think, Verstappen, given the pace that he saw from him in FP1. There's the little mistake through that final right-hander, turn 13, that saw him out over the gravel. And, you know, it's not been a strong one so far in terms of balance.
He'll be fine. I think Red Bull always in these sprint weekends suffer a little bit in the sprint part of it. So I actually think the sprint, it exposes a weakness. They never start that quick, or it's very rare that they start really well. I think Spa was an outlier where actually Max hooked up and Isaac Hadjar straight away. But you see them come on better for the Grand Prix. Miami was a great case in point. Even Canada, if you remember the sprint there, they were really bad, and then they were average for Grand Prix qualifying. So I think Max will be okay, and Red Bull have got a lot more to unlock.
Yeah, Red Bull are unbelievable, aren't they? At a Friday to Saturday turnaround. They don't quite get that on a sprint weekend, but what can they do in qualifying? Now, the Red Bull family have had quite a switch around. Isaac Hadjar out with a wrist injury, Lawson in at Red Bull, Yuki Tsunoda back on the grid. Let's hear from Peter Bayer about how that all went down.
When were you first informed of Isaac Hadjar's wrist injury and the changes that needed to happen as a result?
Yes, good afternoon everyone. Look, it was late last week when I learned about the injury. Then obviously the phone started ringing, a couple of phone calls, and then Tuesday the decision was taken on how we will go into this weekend. In terms of changes, honestly, I think as much as we do not like these things to happen, once it happens, we know what to do. You follow sort of the checkbook, and I guess the biggest change really was for Yuki's travel plans to get him back from Greece and into the simulator to give him the biggest support we can.
And was Liam very keen to get back in the Red Bull, show what he could do?
Yeah, I mean, all the boys are Red Bull drivers, and so in the end, for them, to get into a car that's faster, that's made to fight, with the other top teams, is always an interesting opportunity, and I guess it's part of our job as Racing Bulls. We're the biggest talent incubator on the grid. We've developed more than 20 drivers over the years, and so they're ready, and I think he will enjoy that as much as Yuki does to be back in the car.
Were there any conversations about Arvid replacing Isaac at Red Bull?
No. Look, he's still in his rookie season. He's never driven around here, and we really want him to focus on his career, on his performance. So no, that was not a discussion.
What a way for those drivers to come back from the summer break. I'll tell you what, look at these fans here at Circuit Zandvoort. They have been on their feet, jumping, clapping, dancing, seemingly between FP1 and now, and they are still going. They'll be going long into the night, you feel, as well, bringing the party atmosphere. We do wish Isaac Hadjar all the very best as well with that wrist injury. Will we see him in Monza? That's the question, and Madrid not long after that as well. We have seen him here, apparently. Here he is, there you go, you can see him now. He looks happy, so if he's here, you presume that he's recovering quickly and well enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that it was never an issue with him sort of globally. He just damaged his wrist, which is a shame, and we wish him the very best. And it's been a big rejig, hasn't it, for Red Bull? I thought both of the drivers stepping into their various seats did pretty well. Lawson around 6/10 behind Max Verstappen. We'll see if it's the same in sprint qualifying. Tsunoda got the laps in, but it's still going to be a tough challenge, the full sprint qualifying session for them, still getting their head around those two cars.
What a challenge it is. Bottom end of SQ3 and knocking on the door of it. Who are we expecting to be those contenders? Audi looked good earlier.
Yeah, I think Audi have got a great chance. Obviously, this will destabilise Racing Bulls. They've kind of had a lock-in at the back end of the top 10 for a while, but Yuki's got a big task to get there. And Gasly's got an upgrade for Alpine, and he looked good earlier on as well. So I think the two Audis and Pierre are going to be fighting, and also to see if Liam Lawson's definitely going to be in the top 10, because I mean, we mentioned Max, I think he'll get through okay, but for Liam, if Red Bull are not all singing and dancing at this stage of the weekend, that's a tall order as well.
The outcome of FP1 puts Verstappen outside the top 10, puts Lawson outside the top 10, so those positions are actually being swallowed up pretty quickly. If you're looking at two Audis that are looking on form as well, it's actually pretty tough. There are not a lot of spaces left in SQ3.
Yeah, there's going to be an almighty fight, isn't there? Jolie, we're going to say goodbye to you. Enjoy commentary, enjoy this one. Looking forward to hearing your call. Right, let's hear from James Vowles. Carlos Sainz with some floor damage earlier, just adds to the difficult season they've been having, but they've secured both drivers for the future.
Can we start by talking about drivers? Both have re-signed. Just how important is that stability for you and the team?
Yeah, it's vitally important. When you're going through what we're doing at the moment, which is large transformations, large swathes of big changes, the stability that Carlos and Alex provide is huge. And Alex has obviously been there since 22. He wants this project to be successful, but having Carlos there by our side as we go through that is vitally important. It shows everyone in the outside world, we give them obviously an inside scoop as to what we're doing, what was gone wrong, how we fix it. But I think it clearly demonstrates to the world that their belief in the project's still there. It's been a difficult year, but it's good in the long term.
Now, to quote Niki Lauda, you learn more when you lose than when you win. What have you learnt about those two drivers during this difficult 26?
If I start with Carlos, he is immensely good. His attitude and approach doesn't change, irrespective of whether he's fighting for 18th or a podium. And that's quite unique. Normally you'll see a change in persona from individuals. The more frustrated they are, the more emotion kicks into it. And Carlos doesn't have that at all. He's just driven by constant performance improvements, fundamentally, that is what you need to be driving yourselves forward. With Alex, he's obviously been here for a long time. What he's able to bring is he's able to see how the team was 3 years ago, for example, and actually paints a really good colour and light as to, even when everyone's mood is a little bit more downbeat, it becomes harder to become more upbeat as you drop down the grid. He's able to demonstrate how those changes are having material impact. So they bring different aspects to it, but both are a strength.
Quite the news for Williams then, coming into this first race back in the second half of our season, that both drivers have committed their future. Carlos Sainz multi-year, Alex Albon for the 1-year extension. These guys are ready for it, aren't they? We bring in Lawrence Barretto in the place of Jolyon Palmer. Lawrence, driver market then, with Williams locked off, how are things looking?
It looks like attention's going to move to Fernando Alonso now, and Aston Martin. That's still a sought-after seat, despite the fact that Aston have struggled so much this year. He's got to decide whether or not this Honda power unit upgrade here and the chassis update here is good enough to make him want to stay on for next year. Then you look elsewhere. Audi look pretty settled, Cadillac look pretty settled as well. It's Esteban Ocon's seat that is probably the big talking point. You've got Fornaroli, you've got Kamara, you've got Hirakawa, you've got Jack Doohan, all kind of fighting for that seat. So that's probably the next step, the next big domino to fall in a big change on the grid.
Yeah, I saw Jack Doohan's name being really put out there in the mix for that one, as well as Kamara's. Alex Brundle then onto the here and now in sprint qualifying. What are we looking out for, and who are we looking out for?
Short sessions, you're looking out for traffic in the final sector. You're looking out for errors as well in the final sector. George Russell, I think, has had a decent weekend so far. Although there have been, a couple of little moments in traffic for him. He was only just under 1.5 tenths behind Kimi Antonelli, who was pushing incredibly hard in FP1. We saw that with a spin out of turn 10. He'll be looking to try to match or beat Kimi Antonelli at this stage. It's going to be important psychologically for him, I think, coming out of the summer break. But yeah, we've seen so many errors in FP1. It seems a very low chance that one of them somehow isn't going to affect the order of those first two sessions.
Come on then, predictions please.
I'm going to go Lando. I think I'm probably going to follow Jolyon Palmer on that score, but I'm thinking wildcard wise, I think Lindblad is someone that we should look out for. He was the leading Red Bull family driver this morning, and I think he could be in for a big result, given two of the Red Bull family drivers are in new surroundings this weekend.
I think Lando Norris, yeah. I think Lando Norris, but it's going to be incredibly close with Kimi Antonelli. A similar order to a similar set of front runners to the ones that we saw in FP1, I really believe, but Lando Norris is going to take this sprint pole.
Kimi Antonelli was fastest earlier, but could Lando Norris take this sprint pole? As we all seem to think he may just do. Do get involved at home as well. F1 Fantasy has a brand new F1 Legends League. Scores back to 0, and you can battle against former F1 world champions with that. But here we go, in the sand dunes in Zandvoort, with the sun shining and the fans in almighty spirit. It's time for sprint qualifying. What can Max Verstappen do on home soil? This is it here at the Dutch Grand Prix.
about to continue the Dutch Grand Prix weekend in Zandvoort. And we have progressed to sprint qualifying. We're going to enjoy this session. It is relentless at round 12 of the World Championship in the Netherlands. Originally built in 1948, this circuit has been changed through the years, but we're setting the grid for 24 sprint laps around a circuit that runs to 2.6 miles. It is the very first time that we've had a sprint race in the Netherlands, and it means, for the context of the weekend, just 1 hour of practice on greasy, slippery, not as slippery as the North Sea that we carry over, but still a low grip racetrack. This is going to be the highest grip that they've had all weekend long, and it's got to be laps of consequence for the field. It is once again a superb atmosphere. The DJ has been whipping the crowd up. There's been a giant sing-song, and every single time the fans make their way in via bicycle or on the train, it is an army making their way in, and great conditions after the dampness earlier on. The sun shines in the Netherlands. The track temperature is 34 degrees, the air temperature is 19 degrees, and for those in the pit lane, they're being serenaded and they are ready to build up to what should be a very competitive session, with the intervals barely split given the length of the circuit and the type of the circuit. We're building up to 44 minutes of action in the company of Mia Shakes. I'm delighted to say Jolien Parler and David Coulthard are with us once again after the summer break, ready to go once more and see some proper laps at the limit.
And it's great, isn't it, to be back? And the sunshine is out, because when I woke up this morning, it was torrential rain, and I hadn't packed a rain jacket. So good news that we're going to have a dry track, and oh, what a track it is, Julian. This is old school. Get out there, attack the track, and it's going to be evolving a lot, of course, because we've only had that 1 hour free practice session earlier today.
Yeah, I think you've got away with it without the rain jacket, but the rest of the teams, everyone out there was still trying to explore and gain what they could in that 1 hour of practice. But we did see the track just get better and better, and it will now be bone dry, and we'll still see more and more rubber go down. So it's just going to be an evolving beast that no one's really settled into so far in today's running. So it's really, I'd say, anyone's game.
We find ourselves with Kimi Antonelli leading the Drivers' Championship in the Constructors. Mercedes have 379. It is Ferrari within striking distance in second, then McLaren and Red Bull, our traditional top four, continue. In recent races before the summer break, Racing Bulls got past Alpine, but that is a very, very tight battle. And then you have everyone from 7th downwards trying to find their way to Haas's tally of 21. The intervals in the Constructors' Championship worth millions of dollars, so every position counts in Formula One. Now we can see the very narrow pit lane down there. This is a circuit that for a long time Formula One didn't visit. It is not the traditional throw $1 billion purpose-built facility that you might get at other places, and it retains a real charm as a result of it. There's a green light at the end of the pit lane. It is our first competitive session of consequence as we resume the season, begin the second half of the campaign, and Kimi Antonelli is the driver who begins his outline.
Yeah, and what a track, as we've been saying. You get to see these sort of funky lines, not going down traditionally to the shortest way around the corner, using the banking to pick up as much grip as possible. And this section out here through the sand dunes has consequence. You make a mistake, the gravel is there to meet you. And free practice this morning, we had Carlos Sainz go in the gravel a few times, which led to some, what we affectionately know in the industry as gravel rash. And that's where you damage the underside of the car, which saw him lose some downforce. So you've really got to sort of, it's a Monte Carlo meets classic racetrack, in as much that the consequence for making a mistake is, well, not necessarily a crash, but there could be some damage.
is Isaac Hadjar. He is in attendance, but not behind the wheel. Liam Lawson taking his place in the Red Bull car. Yuki Tsunoda returning to the grid. Arvid Lindblad continuing in the other Racing Bulls. And for Lawson, a chance to put things right after a really chastening experience at the start of last season. He has only missed the points at 3 rounds of the World Championship this year, and as a result goes in with completely different form, completely different mindset, and a vastly different structure, DC, because things have been changing at Red Bull. Notably, of course, Max Verstappen committing his future to the team, which is so important for every single employee there.
Yeah, and you could hear our friends in the tabloid media going, "Oh no, he's gone insane. We can't speculate anymore. Now what can we say? The rumours are." And yeah, look, my gut feeling has always been that Max would either continue or take some time out, because Red Bull allows him to be himself. And the structure commercially of a lot of the other teams, understandably, is that in signing a driving contract, you're also signing a contract that stipulates a certain amount of appearance time and partner time, which Max obviously has earned the right not to have to do as much of it. I'm sure it's exactly the same for a Lewis Hamilton, whereas a Kimi Antonelli, who could be on the cusp of his first World Championship, will have a contract that probably says Mercedes owns all his time away from the track.
He'll want to be winding it down though, won't he, to concentrate on a title bid, Kimi, with the way that he's been going. And it's so young, but yet so composed all the way through the season so far, on and off the circuit, and starts to see a championship looming now in half a season's time. And he would look good as well, didn't he, earlier on?
Yeah, it was good to see, Alex, wasn't it, the way he built that session this morning to finding a time right at the end. And I think that's really been something that's been notable on his performances, the sort of composure that he's had and the lack of mistakes. Hopefully we don't do commentary curse here and he suddenly goes off track. But it's been impressive to watch as he came up through the lower formulas.
Yeah, had a special time here in the lower formulas. Something, DC, you know all about, winning here in the Masters, the inaugural Masters. Back at the start of the 90s, Antonelli claiming a championship and standout performances, overtaking drivers for fun when he was in the 4th tier of motor racing. He's climbed the way to the top. The drivers in the commentary box have been telling you about his superb form so far this year, but he's into the gravel and he's brushing through it on his first push lap at turn 30.
I feel so guilty now. I feel so bad that we've gone and cursed him with that, but yeah, hopefully he hasn't picked up gravel rash.
He's coming into the pits, so this is okay. You've completely cursed him, DC. He's straight into the pits. There might be a little bit of gravel rash on the bottom of the car. It was a big old moment, wasn't it, when you turn in to that penultimate corner with a load of energy sweeping through. So it's a big one. He'll come into the pits, and the team may well check the car over. They'll send him back out again. It's a short lap, but there's less than 7 minutes to go already, so he could be in trouble for the end of this session.
Yeah, just looking at our information here in the commentary box, it could be a tailwind. It's kind of, as we look at the graphic, it looks more side wind, but it's slightly pointing towards, it could have been on the underside of the rear wing, which takes away downforce.
Yeah, exactly that. It was the same corner as has been causing problems. This braking zone here for 11, and then the wind, just, you can see the flags on the top right there, just pushing into this turn. So you lose a little bit of rear load, and it's always the same phase. The driver's turning it in, releasing, and then feeling the rear of the car go light. So we saw a couple of drivers do it earlier on, and Antonelli is the man that's straight away in the wars, still in the pits, and the team checking it over as Leclerc jumps to the top of the times.
Lewis Hamilton is about to take it away from him, and he does so by 0.07 of a second. Your form guy from practice earlier on, Antonelli was top, but everyone was competitive. Certainly when we looked at the dynamic handling that Lando Norris was able to produce at this circuit, where he's a former winner. He looked very comfortable behind the wheel of the McLaren. Turn 13 that he's just gone through there is traditionally where the drivers make mistakes when it comes to one lap. You get deep into 12 and you get into the gravel trap at 13. Lando Norris is topped by 800ths of a second. Lewis Hamilton is 700ths of a second ahead of his teammate. We hope it's going to be that type of session, that type of proximity. Antonelli asking if the car is okay. Those checks being completed right now. Arvid Lindblad finds himself P5, a rookie who finds himself the experienced driver in that team as a teenager. A strange weekend for Racing Bulls as Carlos Sainz goes over the line. Reason for that, Yuki Tsunoda's not driven these 2026 cars until today, and he goes into 7th place. And how about that? Lindblad, Lawson, Tsunoda, 5th, 6th and 7th at the moment. Just to tell you, if you're one of our newer viewers, you must be on the medium tyres for this part, for the next part, and then you get a set of softs for the shooting.
Antonelli is out on circuit again, so it was a really quick decision for him to come into the pits because he's gone off effectively into the final turn there where he's rejoined, and then he's had the wherewithal to think, okay, I'm just going to get the car checked over rather than just trying to soldier on and put a time on the board. So he's taken the time to do that. Mercedes have checked the car, they say it's all okay, and he is on an outlap right now, coming to the end of an outlap, so he's got plenty of time still to put a time on the board. I think that's not a bad effort from Tsunoda as well at this stage.
Absolutely, and just looking at the offset between Piastri and Norris, currently a McLaren front row, Norris got a little bit of a slipstream, didn't he, off that final corner across the line, which could well be the marginal offset in their performance. But Alex, how great is it to see how tight it is at the top?
Yeah, after the field spread that we said, this is a replay of what happened to Kimi Antonelli once again. Piastri has gone P2 for you.
Yeah, that turn in and oversteer
Just lost the
immediately.
rear very weirdly.
It snapped. He did well to catch it, but yeah, immediately on turn-in, which, well, put us in the cockpit, Julian. You're not heavily braking there. It's a sort of light deceleration and then launch the car into the apex.
Yes, there's a little bit of pitch on the car as well. As you hit the brakes, the front will just drop down and give you a sort of sharper front end, a lower front end for the turn-in. And you just simply feel the rear of the car going light, so you want to feel like it's really glued to the road, like you can turn in and keep the wheel there poised, ready to pick up the throttle straight away on that corner. But just felt a little bit of instability in the car, which got bigger and bigger as he didn't save. And let's see what he does then. Next lap coming through to the same point, easily enough pace in this Mercedes car to get through, and yeah, it's a cleaner lap.
Out of the banked final corner, 14th and final, and across the line for Antonelli. And Antonelli goes into 7th as he manages to undo the pressure. And we've seen the Mercedes drivers under pressure laps plenty of times, but as you say, Jolyn, there's so much pace in that car. It's not quite the intensity that sometimes we got last year when the field spread was basically a second. And if you did, for example, take too much out of your tyres, you'd be struggling, you'd be right on the brink. Both Ferraris, for example, wanted 2 cool laps on the tyres after their first runs, told not enough time left in the session. Fernando Alonso locking up and wide at Tarzan corner.
Yeah, I was wondering why he was bottom of the times without a representative effort on the board, and that is why. So he's got to carry the same set of tyres through this session, and he's going to have to then nurse what will surely be a bit of a flat spot on the front right for this lap. Upgrades on the Aston Martin, Honda with a new power unit here as well, upgraded for the first time this season, and high hopes, but that's not a great way to start it.
When you get that flat spot on the tyre, you just get the vibration on the front axle, which you can get so bad at times that visibility becomes difficult. Believe it or not, you're just in a driver is sitting in a carbon seat, which is bolted securely to a carbon chassis, so there is very little suspension and not a lot of comfort in these cars.
Front grip starts going away as well if it's too bad, as you just keep finding that flat spotted area, skating across the surface slightly. Stroll, this looks a bit scruffy from him as well in the other Aston, so this will be his last attempt. He's going to time out after this one, having drained the battery over the line.
1 minute to go. Lance Stroll remains in 18th position.